quite a naughty Rinpoche.
Teases a lot.
Sorry?
He teases a lot.
He does tease a lot. Does tease a lot. Okay, lie on your back. Yeah. Oh, air's going in, sighs. Sighs are good. So how are your hands in the drinking and the eating of food and drink? So I have limited words, and I think I might have used up my quota for the 12 days of teaching. I might have only packed 11 and a half days of words. So is there a different kind of tonus in you today because it's the last day? Some of you might have heard me say this before. I often say it. We often have patterns of behaviour around, disengaging, like departing. So my pattern was apparently very well known to my friends and not well known to me, that I would leave before I left. So my classic story is when I was living in England and I was visiting my friend in Germany, and I was meant to catch the train back to England one day, and the day before he kissed me goodbye, and I went, "What? Where are you going?" And he went, "No, well, you go. You always go a day early." So clearly I had a very strong pattern that I had no idea about. So if you've already kissed everybody goodbye and you're out of here, but your body's still on the floor, what does that mean? So your attention goes, right, somewhere else. Are you already thinking about the bags you have to pack or the train to catch? And how do you counter that? So how could you actually still be fully present here, knowing that you are going home? Or as those of you who live in Melbourne, you know, going home is no big deal. You've been going, but you still know that this is the last day. So how do you stay present right until the end? And it's to do with this level of attention and the thing that Danielle was talking about in a way is your presence. Can you bring yourself back to right here, right now? So for some people, you know, it's the anxiety of leaving. Some people, it's a relief to go. So there might be a different emotional tonus that's pulling your attention, whatever that is. How can that lie quietly on the mat with you right here, right now? And for people who don't have that tendency, you won't know what the hell I'm talking about. You'll be as stunned as I was when, you know, I got kissed goodbye a day before I left. Like, what the? So how present are you? And roll up to sitting.
Maybe it's training for when we die, so we can part a little bit.
Maybe. Maybe.
Wait, that was a
Shona's not contemplating dying just yet. Yeah, that's my problem, Ray, too, isn't it? When I'm serious, nobody takes me seriously. It's the cross that we have to bear for being hilariously funny most of the time. Oh, dear. All right, so reach down and find a way to hold so that your right hand is holding your right foot and your left hand is holding your left foot. And could you find a way that, so your elbows are going to be between your knees and you're holding the outside of your feet. Yep. And your thumbs stay with your fingers. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. So you're more on the outside, holding more around the outside of your feet, underneath your feet. So you're scooping them up like they're like nice little eggs sitting in the nest of your hands. That's it. Now, very slowly and gently with your right hand and your right foot, could they lift themselves up a tiny bit off the floor? Go so slowly that you can sense how that foot becomes light. What happens in your head? What happens in your shoulders? Because I was looking at you, Trish, that's why I said head, because your head moved a lot, right? Which is fine. And then, okay, yeah. What's happening in your bottom? So the head bones and the bottom bones are connected. What happens in your chest and your sternum? And obviously something happens in your hip joint, right? That's kind of the obvious thing, because that's where the movement of the lift eventually takes place. But what are the preparations? What's the kind of ground preparation that helps? And maybe you can't feel anything, right? You just feel movement maybe in the knee and the hip joint, shoulder joint. And it's just lifting one foot so that the asymmetry gives you something to compare. And why did I do that funny thing this morning? How would that help today? Help lifting the foot. And then leave the right foot on the ground and lift the left foot. So, but keep your right hand on your right foot just because. And is the left foot easier or harder to lift off the floor? Do you use the same kind of strategies for shifting your weight? But is that like the mirror of the strategies? So maybe, you shift your weight more. And what's happening in your pelvis that might be familiar from one of the reference moves we've used? Maybe not. How's your breathing? What's happening in your ribs? And now alternate. Lift up one, lift up the other. Put it down and lift up the other. So you have one in the air, not two. That's it. So is this a useful thing if you alternate? Does that help compare, clarify any similarities or differences between lifting the right leg and lifting the left leg? In terms of the weight shift on the pelvis. And then explore a little bit lifting up higher or lifting up more to the right or to the left. Just in case you're being a bit stereotypical. And now could you exaggerate something just a few times? As you lift your left foot, could you take your head to the right? And as you lift your right foot, take your head to the left. And we clarified that movement a little bit yesterday, but in a more differentiated way. This idea of your head tipping left and right. Of course, now your trunk is more free to move. That's it. So feel the influence of the head tipping all the way down to the pelvis. And leave it and roll over, lie on your back. Roll up to sitting again. And have your soles of your feet somewhat together so that you can pop your hands over the top and hold from underneath the feet. So your wrists are in front of the ankle joints. And your hands are underneath your feet, if that's possible. Your thumbs are from over the top of the feet. That's it. Other way around. That's it. Yep. Other way around, Jane. Like that. That's it. Outside, down there. So you're outside of the feet. Yep. So that your palms are actually facing more together too, like where the insides of your arms are facing. And if you can't get to your feet, you hold your ankles. That's absolutely fine. And now begin to lift up one foot and put it down, and then lift up the other and alternate. And as you lift up one foot and your head is free to move in space, so this is where your forearms need to be in front of your ankles, otherwise your forearms in front of your ankles. There we go. Yep. How about the possibility that as you lift your right foot, the left knee could go a little bit more towards the floor? So explore how high the foot needs to lift. It doesn't only needs to lift as high as you need it to have this idea that the opposite knee could go to the floor. And there's something about your head being free to move and the weight shifting across your pelvis. So one side of your pelvis is free to lift. And if you fall, well, you know, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and, you know, whatever. Now, so for most of you, you've got your elbow pinned inside your knee. Is there some way that your arms could soften, your chest could soften, and that the elbow on the side that you're going towards could somehow go around your knee to the floor a little bit? Not the lifting elbow, the leaning elbow. There we go. Yeah. So that you don't have to fall, that your elbow could catch you. Yeah? So you lift your foot and you're tipping over to the other side, and that side that you're tipping on, the elbow could catch you rather than you falling. That's it. Well, and it's not you might fall a little bit, but find a way that you could decrease the range of the fall, as it were. Slowly, slowly. So you're thinking about the non-lifting knee going towards the floor, which means that the leg of the side that you're lifting, that side of your pelvis lifts as well. There we go. Yep. Yep, and then back up. How do you come back up? Yeah. Play around, it's fine. It's just, you know, life goes on if you can't do it or not. Good, leave it. And then maybe would be a cunning way that you could just roll onto your back from there. Don't get too interested in that though. That's the punchline. There's a couple of punchlines today. There's 3 different punchlines today. So are you starting to get a little sense of how he's now drawing a few different threads? You know, it's like Fair Isle knitting. He's kind of bringing in a few yarns and threads from previous lessons and putting them in here. Maybe something about that shifting the weight of the pelvis and one side of the hip lifting. Just feel a bit familiar. That side of the knee going to the floor might feel a little bit familiar. All these things that are helping the chest to be soft so that your hands and your feet can connect and adapt. All these changes of orientation of your head so that you can track yourself through space. So I'm telling you this as budding ATM teachers. This is not what I would tell the public. They don't need to know, right? Because I'm the magician teaching you how the illusion works. And it's a secret up to a point. But it's kind of an obvious secret once it's exposed. Yeah? And what's the influence of all of that? Cumulative explorations as you lie on the floor. Let's clarify a little bit more. As you're lying, bring your feet up and hold your feet in the same way as you were in sitting, but now in lying, in a different orientation. So, yep, your right hand on your right foot and your left hand on your left foot, more on the outside of the feet, coming down between your knees. And in this position, just take your head a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left, not rolling, but sliding the back of the head. And go slowly and gently, and feel the influence that that has on your legs. So now you're not initiating anything with your feet. Your head is kind of showing its, how it can support the shift of the weight on your back, your pelvis is kind of relatively high in the air now. You're right on the top of your pelvis, if you're on the pelvis at all. And the head sliding, so the head lifts just enough that you don't mess up your expensive hairdo, as he said yesterday. So how do you keep your head light? Something has to get a little bit lively in the front of you to help your head be light. And feel how the head moving, swinging, changes the shape of your ribs in the sides. So your right foot's in your right hand and your left foot's in your left hand. Right foot, right hand. Now it makes sense. That's it. It makes sense that you are ambidextrous. And then gently, as your head goes to one side, which leg would like to lift more? So there's two possibilities, right? Explore both. Or the third possibility is that they're not interested in each other at all, and they just don't care. Feel what the possibilities are. Leave it, rest. Rests lengthened. Roll up to sitting. And find that way to hold your feet in the same way that we've been doing this morning. And begin to lift one leg off the floor and put it down, and let that movement grow a little bit, adding in that next detail, which is the opposite knee coming to the floor, or going in the direction of the floor. So you don't have to go there all at once. And having somewhere in your memory that as that opposite knee goes to the floor, that the lifting leg, the pelvis lifts on that side, right? So the foot lifts and the pelvis lifts on that side, and that helps you find a way to rest on the outside of that knee, and that you can soften your chest and your elbow So the side that you're starting to lean towards, your elbow could come to the floor on the outside of the knee to catch you. But in the end, actually, it doesn't need to catch you after a while because something galvanizes in the middle of you that helps you control that slow rolling around. And if the movement continued and the head continued to move to that side, could you imagine a time when your head would just get so heavy that you'd just like to have a little lie down? The head would like to come to the floor. And the foot can continue to lift to help control the move, help control the roll. No, it doesn't have to. Try both. It doesn't. Eventually, it might want to. Keep the knees relatively bent for this one, and then you might find a way of rolling back up. You might have to go all the way onto your back. It might be that you can't stay on your side. Eventually you will, because it'll be reversible, in this lifetime or the next. Find a way that your head could go down to the floor and then you would roll onto your back. And then, well, what would be the possibility for going back up again? Now the trick is the head stays low, right? There's a reason why he's been farting around with the head being free to move and the chest being soft, because you keep rolling over. There's something about the use of the timing. So this is one of the classic timing, orientation and movement stuff is present, ever present, and your attention is kind of flicking between the two. Kiddo. You look like a lot of little button mushrooms rolling around. I don't know why you look like button mushrooms. You just look like button mushrooms to me. Leave it, and obviously you can find a way to roll on your back. How? So how does he think these things up? I mean, what a creative brain to these devious, weird little things.
I don't think he wants to look at television.
You don't think he watched a lot of television, no? You don't think he was chasing Pokemon? No. No, I can't remember who. One of the people who were at Amherst, who was, I can't remember which, was telling us that they were quite intrigued in the bedroom next door to Feldenkrais, where Feldenkrais was sleeping, and they'd hear his bed kind of getting a pounding and thinking, "Well, hey, go, Mr. 80-odd-year-old." But they finally asked him, and he was making up ATMs at night. So that could be a euphemism. I'm making up ATMs. Could be. Well, yeah, he was married to a paediatrician. Have you read the book yet? The biography? I've only read selected bits, but apparently it's fantastic. I've heard from many people that it is a fantastic read. So do yourself a favour and purchase a copy. It's huge. It's a big book, but very well written and very well researched, apparently. Okay. Labour of Love. Yes. Yeah, well, Mark Rees was one of our trainers, actually. He's quite a formidable little fellow, wasn't he? I was slightly nervous about Mark. He was very exacting, quite a perfectionist. So it doesn't surprise me that the book is like it is. Yeah. Extraordinarily detailed person. His FIs were exquisitely accurate. All right, bend your legs up and hold on to your feet, so staying in lying. And start to take your head a little bit to the right and then a little bit to the left. And then we'll coordinate this together just so that you don't cannon into each other. But next time you take your head to the right, start thinking about your right knee going towards the floor. So your head goes to the right and your right knee goes to the floor. Now the other leg is free to lift to control the roll, all right? So you feel that lifting leg, that up until now has been kind of your focus of attention. You thought, well, the lesson's about lifting the leg. Actually, you can lift the leg in order to control that roll onto your side. And you're going to the right side, come back to the middle and go to the right side. And then there's a point where that right elbow could come to the floor as well. And the lifting leg, if it continues to make a sort of lifting motion, so the leg lifts on the side that you're not rolling to, you might find a way that you could roll over your elbow and bring that opposite foot to the ground, and the lifting leg keeps moving through space. Yeah, and then then it does something weird. So you keep your legs fairly wide. Keep your knees bent. For this iteration, your knees stay bent. There's something that if you're going to the right, your right leg, the outside of your right leg comes to the floor. You're on your right elbow as well. And if your left foot keeps moving through space, as if it wants to almost stand on the floor, a little bit like that movement yesterday, but not exactly, but something like that, wants to go over you and find the floor, you would find a way to roll up to sitting. Now, when you get there, there's two things that could happen. I won't say. I'll see what you do. Then I'll correct you if you're wrong. No. There's two ways. It doesn't matter. So your head keeps moving, right? The trick is that leg that is in the air keeps moving. I'll just get rid of that little rolly thing. Whee! See how you have to be social and watch each other. So the two options as you're rolling up to sitting is that the leg that you lifted up, your elbow could stay on the inside of that leg, or your elbow could flip to the outside and you could come up into side sit. So you roll onto one side and then there's something around. So that's a differentiation. So I think pretty much everybody came up with their knees still wide so that you're in a symmetrical sit as you came up by your right side. Could you find a way that in this instance it's the left foot keeps moving, so when you're on your side, as it keeps moving, your left elbow pops to the outside. If it happens too early, then you'll miss the roll. And it doesn't matter, does it? If it does in your little voice, it really matters, I've got to nail it. Well, get over yourself. Kindly get over yourself. Oh, Leonie has come up with such an unusual, don't look at her. because it's very complicated. I have no idea how to describe that to you. Now that I've said your name, you're going to look. Yeah, I've confused you now. All right. Lie down. And if you're interested, try it the other way. And you don't have to, it's the leg that you're rolling towards, it's the leg that you're rolling away from, the lifting leg that flips inside your elbow. But do whatever way is easiest for you first. And it seems like in the room, for most people, it was easiest to come up with your elbows still staying inside your knees. And roll back. Find a way to make it, so Jane, it's the other way around. Yeah, it's the lifting leg where the elbow flips out at the last minute. Yeah, that one. But at the last minute, yeah. Yep. So the side sitting one is just an interesting variation, but interestingly, that's what he taught first. So there was something happening in the room where that's what they all did spontaneously first. Whereas my experience in teaching it is that most people do this coming up to a symmetrical sitting first. So Amherst, they're American. Who knows?
Maybe they have done that other exercise just before that. Changed.
Oh, that one. Yeah, they haven't. Not according to the transcript, but no. Yeah. That you could do that if you wanted to clarify. Yeah, that would be a clarifying variation you could put in. It's a whole item in itself. Okay. Leave it and rest. So if there were some bumpy passages on the roll-up, then you might have a little, a bit of tenderness as you're lying down. So again, that just shows you where you were maybe trying to use the floor to push against or pivot, or whether a part of you wasn't softening to roll over the floor at that point. So be gentle with that area. Be curious and say, okay, well, that's interesting feedback. Thank you, system. That's feedback. I can learn from that. Roll up to sitting. And we'll pursue this movement in this position. So holding onto the outside of your feet. Slowly, slowly start the movement of lifting one foot, and the head and the opposite knee go to the floor, and then the elbow can be available. And that lifting leg is kind of like your ballast, right? You use it to counterbalance so that you can slow the movement down at any point. So what you want to do is hold your breath to slow the movement down. It just makes the movement bumpy, right? And then find a way that you can continue to roll over that leg. Slowly, slowly down through the arm, and the head's free to move. And you could roll gently, gently onto your back via side lying. And then you could keep going around. And how slow, you can, so there's a certain swing to it, right, that you can use momentum to get around. And that's great fun. That's timing. And then, you know, the lifetime thing can be, how slowly can I do it? And could I stop myself at any time? So there, you know, this is, Feldenkrais keeps going, that everything can always get better. So even if you can use momentum and swing all the way around, then your task is, could I do it slowly in reverse at any point? So wherever you are in that cycle, even if it's just comfortably getting onto your side, be satisfied. And notice where there is an element of holding. And in that, where you're holding is the opportunity to breathe and soften. And negotiate with each other about co-inhabiting. Good. And next time you're up in sitting, stay in sitting. And how's your vestibular system? It's getting a beautiful workout. Now, where do you lose yourself? Where does this kind of, you know, it's a bit like watching the TV screen and it kind of everything goes a bit fuzzy. Are there points? There are points of great feedback as well. And now find a way that you could side sit but still hold your feet in that same configuration. So hold your feet first and then just rotate. Maybe everybody have your knees pointing to the right or something so then you won't cannon into each other. Sorry, that means you have to change. There we go. And now find a way that you could roll more onto the right knee so that the left buttock gets a little bit lighter and the right knee can come to the floor. The head is free to follow the elbow. And you could use that ballasting leg to lift. And at some point, you'll need to allow your elbow to flick into the inside so that if you want to continue the roll. So does it make more sense coming from side sit? It's actually much harder. But, you know, who knows? You're all perverse. You might feel it. And then when you come back up to sitting, you know, flicking into the side sitting or not, don't feel compelled. He says, you know, as you're coming up into that side sitting, it's as if you want to look at the sole of the, you know, the outside sole of that, the rotating foot. It's like you get really interested in the outside heel of it. And that encourages your head to bring you up. But really, it's if you're very happy, it's, you know, coming up into symmetrical sitting, that's fine. It's a very interesting movement, though, watching the knees threading through. And if they thread through too early, then yeah. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. And find a way to roll onto your back and have a beautiful, well-earned rest. So how is that feeling now? The movement of the whole self in this folding and unfolding. It's kind of, you know, if you follow my theory about when movements are so circular like this, that everything's getting this gentle workout, right, around all of the joints. So these moves in the end give you this sense of balance of tonus between the flexors and the extensors. And for a lot of people, when there's that balance, there's a quietness in the system because one side isn't fighting the other. There's this kind of reciprocity that feels like quietness. There's no turmoil or tugging or holding or co-contracting. There's this sort of, with this state of evenness. And you could imagine that the emotional tonus could have this sort of evenness too. You're not being tugged into, hysteria or anxiety or any extreme of anything. There's this sort of evenness that if I told a joke, you could laugh. If I told you a sad story, you could cry. And they would be just natural. You could easily go from one to the other, not in a labile kind of neurotic way, where you're flicking, like sort of some kind of bipolar thing. I just mean in a gentle way, right? You could be moved either way. Or allow yourself to be moved would be a more correct way. And slowly roll over. Come up to sitting. If you want to come up to sitting in that novel foot-holding way, be my guest or not. And then take a moment to sit and then stand. You don't have to stand holding onto your feet. Or maybe you want to walk around holding your feet. Maybe you want to be a little bit quadruped. Yeah. So you can feel what shape your spine has to make. And how does this sort of equalising of the tonus feel in standing? As I said, we now have, as soon as we come up into gravity, our system adjusts and we have this postural tone, right, that holds us erect. But when that's quiet and it's not overacting, so we don't go into our overarching or our overflexing or whatever funny things we do in standing we still have this kind of quietness. This is a unique sort of post ATM state. And people can get a little bit, I don't want to lose this. How do I hold this? I don't want to lose it. I want to stay like this. Well, nothing stays the same. Sorry. Because you'll flux up and down a bit, right? But if you found it once, you can find it again. And that's what we're doing. We're practicing finding it and losing it, practicing finding it and losing it in different ways and different means. So you don't have to grasp it because you can always find it again, right? Shift your weight from one side to the other. And then increase the demand on your muscle tonus by walking, and then you'll feel that then you have to do that local flexing and extending, so you're inviting muscles to work and then let go and work and let go, and feel that kind of natural cyclic movement is supported by our innate wiring. We work and we soften and we work and we soften. And then contemplate. So we had the groups of 5, right, where there were 3 people doing and 2 people watching. In order to kind of expedite that, there's one person in that group of 5 who hasn't done the watching. Am I right or am I right? Right. That person, can you stand and then 2 people who are not in that category sit with you? 2. So that the person who hasn't looked is now going to be a looker, and there'll be 2 people that will quietly go and sit at their feet and gaze adoringly at them, ready to be looked at. So it means that but sit, if you're going to be gazed at, sit at the feet of your observer so that we know, people know. You're not in your groups, you can't be in your groups of 5. You've got to coalesce somehow. That might mean that there's